broadcasting live from our studio in Boston. Solutions Review is proud to showcase Cloudflare in the Solution Spotlight, a unique online event for industry professionals.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Solution Spotlight featuring Cloudflare and focused on protecting against deceptive and dangerous link-based attacks. With phishing campaigns still proving to be one of the top methods for breaching an organization, threat actors are targeting individual users through multiple channels of communication: email, web, SMS, and more. The goal is simple: trick users into clicking malicious content, paying fraudulent invoices, or divulging sensitive information. Multi-channel phishing is emerging as a preferred method for exposing users to a wide range of threats. The rapid adoption of hybrid work has fueled this trend as well, providing additional opportunities for bad actors to leverage. So today, we will go in depth on why multi-channel phishing attacks are so dangerous, how users are being exploited through their use of email and web browsing, and what can be done to insulate users from these malicious threats. And joining us to walk you through this presentation will be Ankur Agarwal and Ayush Kumar, two cybersecurity experts from Cloudflare. Ankur, I'm going to hand the show over to you now.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining our multi-channel threats webinar today. My name is Ankur Agarwal. I'm a product manager here at Cloudflare, working on Gateway, which is a part of our Zero Trust suite of products. And I'm joined by Ayush Kumar. He's our Area 1 product manager, focusing on protecting your email and email threats. So we're going to jump into walking through basically the number of threats affecting enterprises today, how you can use Cloudflare One to protect against those, and essentially just walking through each one of those different threats and protection vectors. So I'm going to pass it over to Ayush to walk us through the first set of threats here.
Perfect. Thank you. So looking straight into the phishing threats themselves, at Area 1, we're constantly seeing a large portion of email traffic and kind of developing our own trends to what we see. But really, when we look at phishing threats, we kind of put them into these three different buckets. So, we look at them in terms of type. So you have your classic links, your attachments, your business email compromise, where someone's pretending to be someone who you may have done business with, or things along those lines. You have sources, right? You have outside, you have inbound traffic coming in, you have trusted partners that may be compromised, and that compromised account is now sending you phishing, and this is someone you've had a relationship before, you've interacted with them, so your users aren't as skeptical to think like, hey, what if this link is bad? And then finally also inside, right, looking at internal account takeover and things along and those lines. So then finally is channels, right? Email is still largely the largest way that we do communication within businesses and between businesses, but we've also seen a rise of other kind of tools, such as you see LinkedIn there, you see Drive, you see Slack, you see all these things, right? So you're looking at all these other ways now that attackers are using phishing ways to try to get any sort of information that they can to compromise an organization. But with that being said, links are still the most detected phishing threats, right? So this is kind of based on our 2023 phishing threats report. Again, this is what I was alluding to earlier. We see a lot of email traffic through our customers, and these are kind of the trends that we've seen. So links are still the predominant way that attackers are trying to compromise accounts. They may send a link that says, hey, you need to reset your Microsoft password, and that link is actually a malicious link that's devised to steal credentials from the user itself. So you see, it's obviously a combination of these, but still links tend to be the predominant method of attackers, the predominant vector that attackers are using to try to compromise accounts. So given all this data, and Ankur on the side working with a lot of the stuff in Cloudflare One, I think the thing that we really wanted to focus on is these rise of these multi-channel phishing attacks and how our products are working together to protect your organization and minimize the risk that's going on. So if you don't know what kind of multi-channel phishing is, or haven't really heard of it, it's using these different avenues to try to phish a user within your organization. So as you can see below, the channels that are there, you can do email, which is a classic one, but also web, text, social, and IM, right? And what's interesting is that what we've seen in our customers is you have, users that are logging into LinkedIn on their corporate endpoints, right? And that opens up a whole nother avenue of risk of, well, now LinkedIn messages is a credible way to try to phish someone, right? That may have not existed before, but now it has become kind of a credible way. But also not just your corporate email, but we know a lot of our customers allow users to log into their personal email as well on their corporate endpoint. So again, it may not be that the user just is getting a link sent to their corporate email account, but it could be sent to their personal one that they open up on their corporate laptop, and suddenly they've again compromised the organization. So this idea of multi-channel phishing, it's no longer that we're just targeting the email address of the person that we found that we're trying to compromise, but also what are some other avenues? And really that adds a layer of complexity, but that's a challenge that we have been able to solve really well, and obviously that we'll get into deeper into this webinar. But again, phishing is still the main one. Whatever channel these attackers are using, they're still sending, as we mentioned, a malicious link, right? It's really easy. It's a quick one click, and people are pretty trusting on the links that are sent to them. So, and once they're able to do that, they'll compromise the account by having a credential harvester and get those credentials and try to either move laterally or see what else that they can do damage to within an organization. But how prevalent is this multi-channel phishing? And again, these are also from from the data that we were able to compile. Is like email again is still the top one of the top threats. But as you can see, that organizations are constantly getting now attacks that aren't just started from the email, right? We can see here that social is caught up to email. Text messages, I still get text messages from someone pretending to be Matthew Prince, who's our CEO, asking for, hey, I need you to send me $25, right? And as much as people in this organization within this call may, say, oh man, that wouldn't fool people, you'd be surprised. The reason those attackers are spending the cost and the infrastructure to send out those messages is because someone is clicking on them, right? So those are things that we want to stop, that we want to get ahead of, so that there's no, compromise that occurs within the organization. So as I mentioned, links are, as we increase the channels that can be used, you're kind of the vectors that are occurring, it just becomes a challenge to deal with these malicious links, right? So there's a few ways that we have come up with, but it's really hard to find a malicious link, right? It's hard to, you really have to crawl through and go down to the core level of what the website is asking for, and are they impersonating a website maybe like Office 365? So, and one thing that personally I've seen a lot is link shorteners, right? So a great use case where we'll talk about email link isolation. But so what we've seen is attackers will use something like tinyurl, bit.ly, or any sort of link shortener, and they'll have it point to a known safe website, which will make it past the first layer of filtering. And then once that email has been delivered, they'll actually weaponize that link post-delivery. So they'll then have it point to their malicious website, and now you have a malicious link sitting within your inbox. And we do have a way of dealing with this that will make sure that if the user ends up clicking that link, that they won't be, again, exposing the organization to a potential risk. But there's a lot of things that we have our own crawlers that kind of crawl through and actually look at these links. So as you can see within that diagram is, we know if a link is malicious, right? We know that the domain still makes sense and they're pretending to be Microsoft, it's malicious, let's block it, right? And then you have your benign links, right? Maybe it's just it's a Google search, or they're just pointing to a YouTube video that between employees were shared via email. But you really have these links that Ankur and I will dive a little bit deeper into that are suspicious. So they're on the margin, right? And so this may be that link shortener that we talked about earlier, which is, well, you could weaponize this, right, post-delivery. So how do we deal with this? And I think a lot of attackers are having these links sit within this margin that we have personally found that a lot of existing email solutions have a tough time keeping up with. And we do see them get weaponized post-delivery and are just sitting, having a large dwell time within an organization within their inboxes. And again, this is a little bit deeper into that deferred attack, or what we call the post-delivery one. So how does this like actually work is you set up the website, you send the attack, and then afterwards you're actually able to change where that link is pointing to, and now suddenly you have an actual you have an attack that's actually weaponized and is ready to steal credentials or install malware or download ransomware, whatever it may be, that it's ready to go. And again, we find that modern solutions have a tough time dealing with that. So how do we kind of deal with it is we have our own adaptive isolating technology that we use to these links that are on the margin that prevent your customer or prevent the users from actually exposing the organization to any risk. And so how does this work? As I mentioned before, the links are suspicious, right? They're on this margin. We can make an assessment that they're known good or known bad. And how this works is, so we'll do the email analysis, and if we find that the link is within this suspicious margin, we'll actually isolate it. So I'll show you how this looks like in the next slide, but we'll actually rewrite the link using our remote browser isolation tech so that it opens up in a headless Chromium browser at the nearest node, like Cloudflare node. So we will still deliver the email with this rewritten link. At the time of click, if the user clicks on it, they'll be met with an interstitial page. And what this is it does a few things. One, we actually have the ability to warn the user of like, hey, this is a suspicious page. Do you really want to open it? Right. And all these things are metrics that are given back to you to say, look, Ayush, he clicked on 100 rewritten links and they're, and he decided to still go through the end. So just having that visibility on which one of your users are making the conceited effort or like the concerted effort to actually go out and click these links. And then if they decide to, they'll be opening up in an isolated browser where, again, whatever they do within that instance kind of gets destroyed, and it protects your organization. So how does this look? I know we've kind of spoken in this very abstract way earlier, but here's a GIF, and I'll let us kind of reset a little bit before I dive in deeper. But here we see the little blue bar at the top shows that it's an isolated browser. That's our way of signifying that you've opened up this link in an isolated instance. But here's the email, right? If you look at this, we've rewritten that link. Your users wouldn't know that they have, but here's the interstitial page, right? It says it's suspicious. And as they choose to open it, they see that little blue bar at the top there. They know it's isolated. But as you can see, this experience is completely seamless, right? It's fast. We're not doing, there's other vendors who have their own technology where they may strip JavaScript elements or try to recreate the website in certain ways. We actually, because of the infrastructure that Cloudflare has, and Encore will dive a little bit deeper into this, like we're just able to provide this very seamless experience where it's instantaneous, right? And as you can see, you're browsing that website and you're doing things. You can also see here that once they open it in an isolated browser, they're unable to actually put in stuff within the actual credential harvester there. So the keyboard is blocked in that one. So even if the user decided to go through all these roadblocks that we put in, and they're like, no, I think I trust this website, and we still think it's suspicious, we'll actually block them from even putting in their credentials here, and they'll get this pop-up here. So this is how it looks like in practice. We think it's a substantial improvement across what is already offered with other kind of isolating services. But I'll kind of pass it over to Encore here to talk about the tech that's driving this and why this makes it really special.
Awesome. Thanks, Aish. To walk through how we're going to essentially render all of that and provide it to you in a fast and performant way, let's kind of take a look at the tech that powers all of this. So when you have that remote browsing isolated session, what is actually happening is only those kind of paint commands are being sent to your users. So if you look at the slide here, on the left, you have your users. On the right, you have those upstream origins they're trying to access. And whenever they say click on that link in their email, this spins up a browser, an isolated browser on Cloudflare's edge. And we're able to spin these up in each one of our data centers globally. So that's over 300 cities at this point. And I have a map later in this presentation, so you can see where they're all at. But essentially what happens is once those are spun up, the entire page is rendered on Cloudflare's edge, and only those paint commands are sent down to the user on the left here. So the advantage of that is we're actually sending a low amount of bits down the wire to the user. And then two, it's not backed by any sort of video streaming. So essentially, as your user interacts with the page or scrolls up and down, it's as performant as it would be to access the original origin. So the advantage of this is in those situations where the place they're trying to access is still valid and good, they don't see any kind of hiccup in performance. And then on the security side, when they're possibly going to anything malicious, you're able to, one, render everything on Cloudflare's edge and not the user's machine, protects against known zero-day exploits, and then two, also control how they interact with that specific domain. What's nice is you're able to apply this just based on categories within our policy builders as well. So I'll get more into that in the next section here. So we basically focused a lot on how we protect email, but let's look at how we protect all the different threats that are affecting enterprises today. So at the top here, this first one is email phishing. That's exactly what Ayush just walked through, basically clicking that link, getting that isolated session, and getting that analysis for your users. So the next one here is SMS phishing. This is basically like when your users get those one-time passcodes to either log in to any sort of upstream service, and many upstream services use this as their method of 2FA. Well, this is nice, and the fact that you have that second form of authentication, it is actually really susceptible to being phished because a lot of mobile providers make it kind of easy to transfer over lines or issue new SIM cards, and then also phishing or kind of sniffing that code that you get sent over that text message can also be pretty easy to intercept. So the way we prevent this or protect against this with Cloudflare One is we support the use of multi-factor authentication through hard keys. And that way, when your user logs in, it's both something they know and something they have. So those two give you a really secure way to access those services. The next one we can take a look at here is cloud collaboration. And for this one, it's using CASB to look at the auth permissions of the resources that you have made available to your users. So typically when folks set up, say, a cloud environment, they're also in control of the security levels of access to each one of those assets. Now, some developers sometimes might actually just open up access to everyone, and they might believe they're opening up to everyone within their organization. They might actually just be opening up to everyone publicly. Now, with our CASB solution, you'll be able to get alerts and be notified of when that happens, and then also get guides on how to remediate each one of those incidences. This can help protect your environment by just making you informed and better informed of the permission levels are set correctly for all of your assets. And then last is close to kind of what Ayush was referring to earlier as well, is kind of the web and social phishing. So with using Secure Web Gateway and our remote isolated browser, you're able to control how the user interacts with those upstream domains. Now, you can prevent them from doing things like entering information on certain websites or categories of websites, or you can even just prevent users from say, printing, if you'd like, because we tend to see, further levels of control just being requested by administrators. So you have that fine-grained control on either individual domains or even categories of domains. So putting all of these together actually help protect your organization from every multi-channel threat they're facing today. What's really nice is with all of these multi-channel threats, we do realize that it's really hard to actually implement each one of these solutions for your environment because each enterprise is pretty unique. They're usually systems that have been built over time, and something that really kind of helps out is, and what we're trying to do to help enterprises out here is really kind of set up workshops and trying to make integrations of these solutions into your environment as easy as possible. So if you want to kind of like get that assessment today, please reach out and we're happy to help to provide any sort of assessments or even POCs. And one thing I want to also point out before we end this webinar here is for a limited time before the end of the year, we actually are adding a promotion here to have up to 50% off our list prices for our components that make up the solution. So anything to do with Secure Web Gateway, CASB, and Area 1. And then Ayush, do you want to take us out here?
Yeah, absolutely. Just something that we wanted to highlight to the group, which is we've recently released this ability to run what's called a retro scan. So what we do is we essentially allow our models, you can approve for us to look back within your inboxes up to 14 days, and we will see what our ML models would have caught. So any sort of malicious messages that are currently sitting in your inbox that your current solution may have missed, this is a great tool to check that, kind of reaffirm your email security posture. This is currently for Office 365 customers, but we are in a closed beta. We've run a lot of these and are opening it up to more of the general public. So if you are interested, please reach out to your Cloudflare representative and we'll turn it on for you. We'll get you set up and have the scan run. But I think with that, we will open it up to some questions. I see there's some in the chat. I can take one of them, which I think is a great question, is around QR codes and phishing and threats. I think Voltaire asked that. That's a great question. I know QR codes have been top of mind. We're seeing a lot of them get through. We're updating our models accordingly. We do not rewrite links within QR codes. That is not something that we have found to be very feasible. So instead, we ourselves will use our web crawling technology with the QR code links. So we'll actually use our OCR, which we use for email security. We'll actually look at the link that's within the QR code and use our normal patterns of recognition there. So in terms of QR code, we're continually releasing improvements, but for right now, we treat them as the same. If they're malicious QR codes, we'll block them immediately.
Cool. Let's see. I'll take the next one here. Is there a way to use this for a select group of users? Yeah. So in both deployments of whether you want to do it for Area 1 users or even on the Secure Web Gateway side, you can use full identity to deploy this to, say, different sets of users. So actually, whenever we see enterprises deploy this, we tend to see first kind of a smaller test group that they'd like to kind of work with and just view how it works with their day-to-day workflow, what kind of information they get, how effective it is. And then once they start to feel more comfortable with it, we start to see them roll this out to the larger, broader organization. So yes, you can definitely cut it up however you kind of like and use those Okta groups or whatever IDP groups you have existing today.
Quickly to Matthew's question, I see that came through. Is this a separate service from Area 1? So how remote browser isolation materializes within Area 1 is something called email link isolation. The caveat there being we do need to be in MX mode, so inline. That way we can read the message and make the changes that are necessary. If you're on the business tier, the enterprise tier or enterprise with FishGuard, this is something that is included for free. So you can actually just turn this on when you see fit. So that's what Encore is mentioning. We have these bundled deals. We don't charge you extra of like, oh, you're using RBI or remote browser isolation within Area 1. We're going to charge you extra. It all kind of works together.
Cool. And I'll grab the next one here. So how is the coverage for crypto Web3 phishing URLs, and which threat feeds are used? So I'll answer both of these here. So the coverage for phishing URLs and crypto Web3, we have those tagged as a few different categories, and we try to break them out individually. So we have one both for crypto. I don't know if we have one for Web3, actually. I'll have to check on that and follow up after this. But for which threat feeds are used, we actually use many threat feeds here. So we both have, we subscribe to a few different industry threat feeds. We get a few from actually intelligence organizations. And then third is threat feeds that we actually assemble ourselves. So Cloudflare has roughly, I'm always kind of struggling with this number. Ayush, maybe correct me if I'm wrong here. I think it's like 24 or 25% of all HTTP requests on the internet go through Cloudflare. And we use that information comboed with a lot of the information we get from DDoS attacks to actually build our own internal threat feeds. So we use that to, one, build an IP database, and then two, also categorize domains. And with both of those, you actually can control individually within our secure web gateway which ones are applied, and also which categories you can apply each of these to.
Great. I see a lot more. Victoria, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that right. In comparison with Microsoft for safe links, that's a great question. Looking at how the product works and how we think about things differently. Obviously, we have different infrastructure and different methodologies, right? We don't rewrite every link. We don't think every link should be rewritten. We don't think, we think malicious links that are there should be blocked. So I think there's a few kind of like philosophical questions that we think are different. Obviously, as Ankur mentioned, we have different infrastructure, right? We have way more hardware that's strewn about the world that you're going to be opening up these remote browser isolation sessions in. So I think if you want to get more information about that, I would highly recommend reaching out to someone, and we can just get you set up, and then you can see how this kind of interacts within your environment. And I think you'll be able to see in a more quantifiable way on how, or maybe qualitative as well, of like how we differ and how the user experience kind of differs with that as well. And then really quickly to Nishad Sheikh's one. Yeah, I'll just quickly answer that too. Yeah, so for ELI, for Area 1 or Cloudflare email security, the enterprise plan, you do get ELI for free as part of that. So you can turn it on if you're in MX mode, and we'll start isolating links for you.
Cool. And I'll grab the next one here. Let's see. How does inspection impact privacy? That's actually a great question. So at Cloudflare, we actually treat payload data and kind of the decrypted data as toxic. And I say it that way, honestly, because we like to essentially, if there's any time we're logging it, we actually make sure the user uploads keys. So they're the ones aware of what's going on. And so we don't have any of that information. Now, of course, for this to work, we need to act as a man-in-the-middle proxy. So we can kind of decrypt from the client to us, apply the security rules that you've configured, and connect to the origin and vice versa. Now, the only piece of that that's actually stored and logged is a possibility when you add in things like DLP payload logging. And that's what I was referring to in terms of a key must be uploaded and that data is only accessible to you. Otherwise, we do not store any other kind of payload data because one, we honestly don't want it. Like it's too much of a liability, and honestly, we would try to maintain as much privacy for your users as possible. Yeah.
I can take one more from Nishad. I see that you're asking how Cloudflare can be helpful with email gateway and remote browser isolation. I think this is a great question to reach out to someone within Cloudflare for. I think there's like a lot of ways, and I think a lot of them are kind of shown within practice. But again, as we mentioned, really decreasing the risk of a person, if you're just running, Office 365 with no protection, then you'll see a lot of these links getting through. Our machine learning models are kind of built on top of that. And so what really you're saving is the risk of a user clicking on a link. Let's say, it's a link to a ransomware like Qbot or Emotet or something like that, right? And when you open up in a headless Chromium browser, that just doesn't go anywhere, right? And that's very isolated to that instance that we've spun up at our node. So I think there's a lot of ways. We'd love to have a more curated discussion with that of like, what are some of the risks that you're seeing, how your users interacting, and then, Encore I or whoever you reach out to, we can sit down and really be like, this is the way that we'll be able to kind of fill in those gaps. So Nishad, if you have questions and if you have someone that you can reach out to, if not, we can reach out to you as well.
Cool. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today for our webinar. And please remember, do reach out to us if you'd like to get an assessment of your networks or your phishing exposure and possible security we can layer on top of it. And have a great rest of the day.
Well, there you have it, another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Ankur, Ayush, and Cloudflare for that expert presentation, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.